Good morning, and happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers who worshiped with us this morning. I would like to begin my reflections on Mother's Day by reflecting on today's gospel lesson when Christ heals the paralytic in the pool at Bethesda. Because as interpreters of the Bible look at this paralytic, they wonder if he was really a disciple of Jesus. He never thanked Jesus for healing him. He didn't seem to follow Jesus after he healed him. We're not exactly sure whether he was a disciple or not. He gives no clear indication. I mention this because we see him in contrast to the Theotokos, who was with Jesus throughout the gospel. We see her first, of course, when he is born, shielding him together with Joseph from those who want to harm him. And we see her with him when he is on the cross. All of the other disciples have fled, except John the theologian, but the Theotokos is there through the good and the bad, through the bright days of his birth and the dark days of his persecution under Herod, and the darkest day of his death. In contrast to the paralytic who was healed by the Lord, and we don't know if he was devoted to Christ or not, there is no question about the devotion of the Theotokos. We have to remember this when we remember our mothers on Mother's Day. They are there with us from the beginning of our lives, through all of the dark things we go through, and through all of the bright things we go through. Very often we don't recognize this. We're like the paralytic who didn't thank the Lord and whose devotion to the Lord was sometimes in question. It's easy to take our mothers for granted because they're always there for us. It's easy to forget to thank them. And so it's wonderful that on a day like today, we can remember to thank our mothers for all that they've done for us, through the good and the bad, for their correcting of us and for their comforting of us, for their teaching of us and for their loving us. The image of motherhood, of course, from the scriptures and in the church is the Theotokos, who gave all of her human qualities to our Lord. Whatever humanity he had was from her. This is how we have to think of our mothers. They gave us our life, and they shepherded us through its earliest days when we were most vulnerable. But also, the Theotokos is an image of prayer and intercession to the Lord for all of us as the mother of all of us. And this is the last thing I want to say, because the Theotokos is an intercessor, which means that she prays for us to God. Very often, as mothers, it's difficult to do your job. There's a joke I heard about raising children, that raising children is often like raising baby alligators. At first, they're very cute, and then at a certain point you realize, we've got to get this thing out of here. It gets stressful. It gets difficult. And sometimes we want to yell. Sometimes you want to lecture and punish. But the one thing we don't do enough is pray. The image of motherhood that is held up before us by the church is that of the Theotokos, and the primary image we have of her is of one who prays. Yes, we have to teach our children. Yes, we have to guide our children. But we have to pray for our children. And here there's even one more thing to add. Because we don't only want to pray for them to be healthy, wealthy, and wise, although it's good to pray for all of those things. But we want to pray for them to be good, to be virtuous, and to know the Lord. So to those of us in general, let us remember to thank our mothers. And to those of you who are mothers, remember to pray for your children. Among all the gifts you give them, it is the greatest gift of all. God be with you all. Christos Anesti. And happy Mother's Day.